Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. It is July 13th, 2025, Season 4, Episode 26. This is Skeptic Generation. I'm Eric Murphy. We need to talk. That wasn't in the right order, but that's okay. I'm very, very glad y'all are here with me. And with me today, co-hosting, is Secular Rarity. Elliot, how's it going, brother?
What's up, brother? I am excited to be here, man. It has been a bunch of crazy stuff since the last time I was hanging out.
It is. You're always so busy. Every time I talk to you, you are just like super, super busy.
Yeah. There's actually two of me. The other one is right now is working on a bean soup in the kitchen. It's going to be ready about 20 minutes from now. So when you start seeing me eating a bowl of beans here in a minute, you'll know that was my clone that brought it.
That's only half not true.
Guys, you don't know which part of that is true. Like some of you out there are going to be very confused. But anyway.
No, I actually asked you to send me a couple of pictures just to talk about what. So the first thing, did you do the protest or the trial first, or were they the same day? What's going on? What were you up to?
Yeah. So earlier this week, last Sunday, actually, myself and a bunch of really amazing people were up in Williamstown, Kentucky, which is the home of the Ark Encounter Museum. And this really, really amazing guy started this concept a long time ago, about 10 years ago.
Yeah, Jim Helton's that guy right there on the left.
Yeah, that guy right there in the white shirt from the Tri-State Free Thinkers. And they have been doing this year after year. And, when 2020 happened and that put a lot of the in-person groups and events and so forth a little bit down and unable to make them happen again.
Actually, I tried to help MC a couple of those years during COVID times. Immediately before and afterwards, went to a couple of those and spoke as well. It was a great time. That is such a fun group. Just like, and for people who don't know, like the thing is that yes, the Ark Encounter, their whole thing is a literal interpretation of Genesis with Noah's Ark, and they don't really talk about how it was just Noah and his sons who brought their wives, and they supposedly just repopulated the planet. And so Jim was just like, "Ooh, this is the genocide and incest park," and they had signs made up that this is the genocide and incest park, and it got international attention because, I think it got more attention than the Ark Encounter when it opened on that.
Yeah.
Like, it was just chef's kiss. The fact that they're still doing it and the fact that it's hitting 10 years next year is wild.
Yeah, and I think it hadn't happened for a year or two, just for various organizational reasons. But somewhere last year, I remember this awesome guy named Joe, the Kentucky Atheist, online. He started reaching out to people and he said, "Man, we got to do this again." And through his work and some other wonderful people like Robin and Jess and Travis at Pangburn and just a whole amazing crew of people were able to make this awesome experience possible. And I mean, it was a freaking who's who. There were all kinds of incredible people. Nancy from the Apostate Sisters, Godless Granny, Chris Mallard, Dade Murphy, Ambushed Apostate, Captive Death, Jay Bundy, Mandisa Thomas. I mean, there were so many. John Lovell, the Skeptic, John Gleason, the Godless Engineer. I mean, oh my gosh, like it was absolutely incredible. It was so much fun. And I think by the end of it, we counted over 24 middle fingers raised and given to us. There were also a bunch of cars that passed by that were in support too, but there was a lot of Jesus loves you.
Oh, of course.
There was a lot of we'll pray for you. But I think one of my favorite moments was one of the big parts of it is we all walk down like right to the gates, all on public property. We never invade their space. We never violate, any of that. But we stand like right in front of the building for a second, right in front of the sign. There was actually this family inside the gate that was standing at the sign when we approached, and the father walked out, and he came up to us and he said, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And he had a wristband on. They had just gone through the exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, "Oh, hey, yeah, we're here just protesting this exhibit." And he was like, "Oh, yeah, why? Is this a regular thing? Does this happen a lot?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually
Every
it
year.
does. This is a yearly event, but other groups do this as well, by the way." There's a bunch of different reasons why people would participate in this. Some people really value separation of church and state. Some people really value, science and education and so forth. We actually had a really good talk about the fact that a lot of the schools in that area have been suffering due to a lack of state funding. Some of that state funding, mind you, $100 million worth, went to the creation of that museum.
Yep.
That money got taken out of children's education fund in part.
Public schools.
That's ridiculous. And we had this really good conversation, and the person was super, super interested and genuine. And, I don't know what happens from that. I'm not saying this guy turns around and starts becoming the biggest supporter of FFRF or anything, but it was a really awesome moment, despite people yelling and despite, some of the nonsense that we were getting lobbed at us. There are actual, truly genuine, sincere people that just aren't aware of some things. So
That's
pretty cool.
awesome.
That's pretty cool, man.
I love that. I was expecting something else. I was expecting
What?
Well, when you said that someone was there, I thought somebody was trying to stake it out and be like, "I got this area, you can't have it," or something like that. But like that's
no, it was a good story. Yeah, I know. We were so ready for the person to try to attack us or something. But no, it's a happy feel good story.
I don't know if I ever told you the first time I ever went to one of the Ark Encounter protests. When it finished and I went back to my hotel, I was followed by the police.
No way.
Like a cop car followed me from the Ark Encounter down the highway, down, off my exit, down the city streets, and followed me to my hotel. Like, they can be kind of crazy down there. Like,
sure. I know it.
That made me nervous.
Shit, I had to go north to get to this. Trust me, I know what it's like.
Yeah.
I was getting out of the danger zone, and it was still bad.
Yeah, Kentucky is beautiful, but it's kind of scary.
Oh yeah.
But before we get into the next thing, we've got open lines. We have a call screener. We'd love to talk to you guys. So you watching, you want to call into the show. Today is the day. Let's do this. Our phone number is here, 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Our call screener is waiting to talk to you, and we'd love to hear from you. Elliot and I tend to get a little more esoteric. We tend to get a little more into the philosophy side of things. But you had a really cool historic thing that you did this last week as well. And I want to draw attention to it. What is this? What did you do wrong? Where did you go? What, my God. This looks like you, it looks like you're in trouble.
I am in fact in that moment, folks. Yeah. On the stand, sworn in, being questioned by none other than Clarence Darrow himself. Now,
from the grave.
from the grave. So if you are not familiar with what has just recently passed here, I can show this. This is the 100th anniversary of the historic Scopes monkey trial. Now,
So
that happened right here in Tennessee, just about 2.5 hours away from Nashville, this tiny little town called Dayton, Tennessee.
So for our international viewers,
yeah,
what happened? What is it?
yeah, this was a truly historic moment. In the 1920s, the state legislature in Tennessee passed a law that said you are not allowed to teach the theory of evolution, the scientific theory that had absolutely swept the world in the last, 50 some odd years, right? We had amassed a mountain of evidence for this, and the state of Tennessee said, you are not allowed to teach it. And so the ACLU decided they were going to challenge that law. And they found a young school teacher who had just moved from Kentucky to this tiny little town in Tennessee. And they said, John T. Scopes, will you go on trial for teaching evolution? And then what proceeded was a week and a half long court battle where one side was arguing that the very fabric of our nation would be torn apart if we refused God's commands and took the Bible out of schools and allowed evolution to be taught. While the other side said simply, we believe in the evidence.
But it wasn't that simple. Like, the thing makes this amazing is it was a fucking media circus. Like,
it was. The whole purpose.
It was absolutely insane. The way that this blew up and kind of took the imagination of the country, that people still talk about this, to this day, that, like, why is it called the monkey trial? You didn't say anything about a monkey here. Where does the monkey come in?
So it was actually brought up multiple times in the court case where there were school children that were brought up on the stand and were questioned repeatedly as to whether or not Scopes ever said humans come from monkeys. The reason that this got brought up repeatedly is because from the creationist side, this is actually, just real quick step back, the term fundamentalist is actually referring to a specific group of religious believers in the American Christian sects. And these people actually start around this time. They exclusively decide to kind of wall off their theology and understanding of the Bible as a literal interpretation, as a young earth interpretation, as one that is completely counter to the scientific theory of evolution and stuff. So basically, this side made this argument, this creationist argument, saying, look, we are not monkeys. Human beings do not come from monkeys. And that was a huge part of what they repeatedly discussed throughout the trial. They said, look, man is not from a lower order of being. Man is from a higher order of being. And a lot of the trial had to do with religious beliefs and whether or not at one point, for instance, the prosecution for the state accuses the defense side for Scopes that they are, in fact, doing the devil's work, and they are Satanists, and they are, while all of them repeatedly professed, except for Clarence Darrow, who was known as an agnostic at the time, everybody else was of a religious faith. Even Scopes himself was Christian, I believe. But truly, this was a watershed moment that would eventually lead to a broader discussion about what we can and cannot teach in our schools, and where the lines of separating religious teachings and historical teachings and scientific teachings. One of the reasons this was so important, in part to the defense, was because the freedom of individuals, right? The First Amendment, the freedom of speech, and so forth, was a really big issue, as well as, again, the separation of church and state. But the other part of it was the fact that the Tennessee state legislature had long ago passed a law. And by the way, a similar law exists on the federal level, folks. The Tennessee legislature had passed a law saying that it was the correct policy and procedure to always teach information in public school that is in accordance with science and reason. And then we passed a law that said we can't teach evolution. And so repeatedly, one of the questions that was brought up was, did you teach from the Hunter's biology textbook, the textbook assigned to you by the state of Tennessee? The answer was yes. And then the question was, can you teach this textbook without teaching the scientific theory of evolution? And the answer was undoubtedly no. Now, the court ultimately ruled out all of the scientific expert testimony and said it was not admissible in court.
Of course. And it's funny.
It was convicted.
Say again?
I said, and ultimately, John T. Scopes was convicted. He lost that trial.
So is this you losing in court?
So that is me. So here's what happened. So I've been burying the lead this whole time. So basically, all of this cool historical shit is happening like real close to us. And myself and a bunch of other people who have founded this nonprofit last year and are just trying to bring, all of our people together and give us these awesome opportunities to celebrate science and reason and being secular and stuff. Well, we rented out a coach bus and got 30 some odd people to get together, and we drove down to the town of Dayton and hung out the whole freaking day, and then watched a reenactment of the trial. The town has a local theater troupe that does reenactments every year, and for this year, the 100th anniversary, they're going all out and they're doing this big celebration. But the reason I'm on the stand there is because when we walked into the courthouse, they grabbed a couple of us and said, "Do you want to be jurors in the court case?" And so that other picture of all of us sitting there is...
Here we go.
That's all of us sitting on the jury. We packed the courts. Can you believe it? We did it. We got it.
Atheists finally packed the courts.
And so a few of us as jurors, they walked over to us and they handed us a script, and they said, "Hey, when we call your name, you have some lines." And so I got to go up on stage and read a couple of lines. I was a minister, J.P. Massengill, a real person who was brought on the stand and was questioned as to whether or not he could be an impartial juror, and ultimately was not allowed to sit on the jury. Everybody in the town wanted to be on the jury. Everybody wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And so they had to be really, really selective. And J.P. Massengill was a minister. He had 4 churches, and he had specifically preached against evolution. And so they ultimately, Clarence Darrow said, "Strike this juror." And so, yeah, I got to go up on stand and read that. I know. It was so cool.
Really cool.
I'm such a nerd.
I did not realize that the Scopes monkey trial was a loss. I forgot about that little fact.
So, and there's some other interesting facts about this too. So, for instance, right after the trial is over, okay, the jury comes back and says, "We have found Scopes guilty of violating this law," right? The Butler Act, which said you're not allowed to teach evolution. And so the jury says, "Judge, we haven't set a penalty." And the judge said, "All right, I'll do it. $100. That's what you owe us," right? Well, the main lawyer for the prosecution was a man named William Jennings Bryan. And William Jennings Bryan has a fascinating history in the United States. He ran for president a couple of times. He talked about gold being such a big issue and us getting off the gold standard and stuff. He was a huge, well-known nationwide, evangelical Christian. And he came down with Clarence Darrow, who were actually good friends. They came down together to take part in this trial. And William Jennings Bryan offers immediately after the trial ends to pay John Scopes' fine.
Nice.
In fact, to this day, there is no record that a payment was ever made for the violation of this law. And ultimately, a few years later, this case will be appealed to the state Supreme Court and overturned on a technicality that
yes.
At the time, Tennessee judges were not allowed to impose fines over $50. And because the jury did not come back with a guilty verdict and a fine penalty, and the judge said it was ultimately overturned. And it wouldn't be until the late 60s that Tennessee finally rescinds the law that says you are not allowed to teach evolution.
So this kind of rolls right into what I wanted to talk about with today's episode, honestly. So I want to take this lead and kind of go with it. We do have a caller on the line. We will get to you, Michael, I promise. And let me put the phone number out before we talk, but I do want to talk to you a little bit more before we do that.
Yeah.
So here's the phone number, 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Our call screener is waiting to talk to you, and we would love to hear from you. All right, so here's the deal. What a great example of Elliot. I gotta admit, I am getting snarky, and I am getting disillusioned. I am angry, and I am frustrated, and I am scared, and I'm sad, and I feel like I'm far from the only one. Mm-hmm. And when we look at the Scopes monkey trial, here in the United States, we look at that as a landmark in the push for evidence-based, education of children, and kind of this march towards progress when it comes to just the growth of the country and all of that. And yet, it was a loss, and it was appealed on a fucking technicality. So where's the win that we're celebrating?
Yeah.
It feels like the older I get, the more bitter I get when I hear the phrase the arc of history bends towards progress, because it feels like if it does, it's only doing so like in the face of all of this evidence that it's not. It feels like every step that we take is a step, one step forward, two steps back. I mean, I don't think that we were expecting to see Roe v. Wade overturned in our time, and yet that happened. And so I'm wondering, is there going to be another year to reenact the Scopes monkey trial before we need to actually have it again?
Yeah. Not bad questions, man.
Right. And, it feels like progress was supposed to be a thing that we're here now, so there's only moving forward, and yet we are getting consistently dragged back. And it hit this nerve when you talked about being at this 100-year, because is it really out of the question that would be taken out next by the current administration?
So I think a lot of these thoughts are things that a lot of us are feeling right now, and I just want to start off by saying I completely understand. I absolutely do. Right? It's incredibly frustrating, and as somebody again who lives in the heart of it, right, in the heart of Tennessee, I can promise you, whatever you think you're hearing about, Tennessee did it years ago.
Yeah.
And it's been this way. And I'm not trying to say that to say like, oh man, your struggle isn't valid or anything. Of course it is. That's not. I'm just saying, like, believe me, I empathize with that whole fucking heartedly. I know the difficulty it is to try to just get 5 people together to go door knocking to say, hey, please don't kill our citizens. I understand. It's very difficult. It's an uphill battle.
Uphill battle doesn't even get into it. We're talking about, canvassing our area to sign a petition. Meanwhile, what was it, $10 billion was just added to ICE funding the 2 weeks ago? Like, these things are not comparable.
Sure. Sure, those two aren't. But there are other things that are. And I think this is something that is very difficult for a lot of us to actually understand and take note of, because of that very, 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 very slow progress that happens. And that's really frustrating. And I don't want to say anything further without saying this. Everybody out there right now that's like yelling and saying, man, SR, I get it. It fucking takes time, but it's too slow. It needs to speed up. You need to keep saying that, because otherwise it won't ever speed up. Like, you have to be the people that are pulling forward, because there are people that are drastically pulling back. And I get it. Hey man, it's not going fast enough. I agree. But it is going. And that's important. One of the biggest shifts that has happened in the last decade, and it directly relates back to the Scopes monkey trial here, is the perspective and view on the courts in this country. For some very odd reason, many, many times over, despite whatever our historical record says, the American population has particularly valued the courts in a way that almost makes them sacrosanct. And it's really weird, because remember, this is a body, this is an institution that once looked at a human being and said, you are property and deserve to be returned as such.
Oh, I mean,
that was the law of the land for years.
And we shouldn't even be talking about that as ye olde time. I mean, shit.
It's not far off.
No, did I ever tell you about, I'm sorry, just as a quick aside, I don't care about this. The people in my family who care, I'm not too worried about. But I've told you Murphy's not my original last name. I changed it to be consistent with my adoptive family, right? Mm-hmm. So I looked into the Murphy last name, and I went down this line. I was speaking to a great aunt, and she was telling me about my great uncle. So 3 generations back, right? Parent, grandparent, great grandparent, 4 generations back. He was the Supreme Court justice who penned Separate but Equal.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, no way. Yeah. Oh, no, gosh.
It was, did you know that we were, we have a pretty direct link to a Supreme Court judge? I was like, oh my God, really? And they're like, yeah, isn't that amazing? I was like, yeah, which one? Yeah. And they're like,
Yeah, that's always the...
Yeah, you shouldn't start off that family history so happy if that's where it ends up, But no, I think that is exactly the thing, though. There are so many cases like that throughout history that we can point to in our court system where, let's just be honest, they got it wrong. They got it really, 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 really wrong. And for a long time, that system has not been looked at as one that has problems. And now, more than ever, the citizens of the United States are saying, we want to look at this again. There's something wrong here. We may not know what it is yet, broadly speaking. I kind of feel like I have a decent handle. But there, you know, because like there's a lot of political scholars and stuff that have been talking about this for a while. Like our system in the United States is kind of one of the only ones in the world that operates in the way that it does, and it's really partisan. And I don't know why anybody would think otherwise, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That's a totally separate point. The point is that finally, more than ever, people are paying attention in a lot of ways. It's still not enough. It's still not enough yet. But see, that's the thing, is that there are some of us out there that need to be the ones pulling the arc of history forward faster. And there's some of us that need to be out there telling people, hey, y'all, get on board. And we can't all do both, you know, but we're both valuable for that.
Oh, and I think it's especially I think it's especially pertinent that we are having this conversation on a platform. You know, and so for people who are watching that are navel gazing about this and thinking that this is some lofty idea, right? When you talk about slow progress towards justice, I feel like that framing doesn't take into account the fact that when you do not yet have justice, it is injustice, right? Like Roe v. Wade, the right for a woman to choose whether or not she's going to get an abortion was taken away in the United States, making it a states' right issue. And so like you have you have that happening 2 years ago. Everyone who was forced to carry a baby to term against their will, they're not going to see justice. There's no slow progress of justice that's going to fucking fix that. And so when we say, "Oh, we got it wrong," "Oh, we're just pushing," "Oh, we need it faster," what we're not like. I don't think that the Supreme Court got it wrong. I think that the Supreme Court set themselves up as the arbiters of what is right. And because of that, when they said separate but equal, when they said not all humans are equal, when they said, you know, that you can or can't have these rights, they became the arbiters of what is right and wrong. And I think that the reason I frame this differently is I don't think there's an ontological, like when you say they got that wrong, it feels like it's from an outside frame of reference that we don't necessarily have, you know? And so when we look at the times that our country gets things wrong, that means we're still on the fight for what is right. And so we can't just objectively go, oh, they're wrong and we're right. You know, especially if we're treating it in these external kind of, you know, navel-gazy ways. Like, it is wrong and it is unjust. There is injustice happening right now. And until we do something about it, until things change, it will continue to be injustice. And so if it is what you're saying, you know, some kind of change to the electoral system or whatever that case is, things are not better until then. So what then? You know, I'm just just angry. But anyway,
I love that, and I really appreciate that thought in a lot of ways, because I think that is something that we can't. So complacency is a big problem. It's something that happens to us very naturally as people. Once you would be surprised how quickly you can get used to things that you thought you could never get used to. Right. And so when we find ourselves in those places of complacency, right. These are the questions we need. These are the emotions and the logic and the evidence that should be presented to remind us that we need to get the fuck up and we need to keep doing things. And with that, I'll also say, because I don't think this is a but, right? I think this is something, somebody said something to me the other day about stacking. And it's like, so, you know, just a basic concept of like, hey, you've got this one kind of thing at the base score, but then like, how do we do more with that? Okay. You know, how do we add more? Go ahead.
Stacking without enough context sounds like you're talking about pogs, which is a thing that I played with as a child at 38 years old. A lot of people watching this don't understand what pogs is, but we could talk about stacking books. We could talk about stacking cards or pancakes.
Any of those. That's the concept.
Right. So what do you mean when you say stacking?
Yeah. So like at the base, you have this one cause or this one idea, right? And then after that is solidified, you then go, hey, great. Now let's do something that elevates this to a bigger level. So first thing we did is we got a bunch of people together and we said, hey, let's go pick up some trash around our community, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great thing. That's a fantastic thing. Keep that going, you know? Once that's going, then you say, hey, you know what? We've been picking up trash regularly around our community. What if we did a lunch afterwards? You know, we got together and so basically just the idea of these organizations, various in-person meetings or online communities or causes in general of attempting to start to build in a way where we are actively bringing in different ideas, different groups, different causes, different peoples, and purposefully attempting to integrate this on a much bigger level, right?
So when you say
trying
stacking, you're talking about stacking together non-similar or causes that aren't all the same into kind of a bigger package.
And different ways of going about them too, right? So sometimes it's a podcast, sometimes it's a trash cleanup, sometimes it's a class about street epistemology. Sometimes, you know, you do all these different things, right? I don't know where I was going originally when I brought up the stack. What was the question? Oh, you were talking about we were talking about like it's not moving fast enough.
Inherent injustice in the system until it is better, or until that justice is somehow stopped in the future, doesn't unjust like.
Right, and that's a beautiful thing to remind everybody of, which is that yes, if we're currently saying that there is not justice, that means we're in a state of injustice, right? If we're currently saying that we are not having, I'm just using the base terms of pain and pleasure here. If we're not having pleasure, then we're having pain, right? So like, yes, I am not blind to the fact that people are hurting right now. My response to that is it takes 6 months to organize the Scopes monkey trial. It took 6 months for us to organize that event, right? And it's taken us almost a year to organize NanoCon. It took Joe almost a year to organize the ARC protest this time. BajaCon, Free Flow Conference, the AAU's conference, AA's conference, FFRF, the RFR excursion. All of these things take time. They take time to grow. And what I'm asking of everybody, honestly, all the time now, is start today. Start right now. Start doing stuff. Because if you're telling me, look, Elliot, there are people hurting, and there are. Like, I'll tell you one place that I haven't heard enough discussion from yet, I think. And I understand why. There's a lot going on. I'm not faulting anybody. But one of the biggest organizations out there that is getting attacked right now, which is wild in my opinion, Second Harvest Food Bank. There are nonprofit organizations that have existed for years that are actively getting defunded right in front of our very eyes.
A huge amount of the federal government. So it's kind of interesting. I'm wondering how many outside of the U.S. viewers are watching us create copium. You know, and you know, how much are we coping with the fact, or people going, what are you guys in the United States doing about what's going on? This is what we're doing. There's only so many things that we have access to. If you're bringing up specifics, like I mean, we can talk about the entire federal government. Heck, I'm friends with a couple of federal employees who no longer or will soon no longer have jobs. I have friends who work with major, collective bargaining and kind of union organizations, and they're brushing up their resumes because they're not confident in the fact that they're going to have a legitimate an industry that is legal in the U.S. for very long.
So let me finish let me land the plane real quick on the food bank stuff, because I think this is a really important thing. The reason that this is so important, the reason that I find that to be a hugely important cause for our community in a lot of ways right now. Who is getting that food? Who is receiving that food?
Yeah,
Because I can tell you, when you look at those statistics, time and time again, marginalized people, minority groups, LGBTQ groups across this nation are some of the largest receivers of those types of programs. Those are our people. People that are kicked out of their home because they no longer want to go to the genocide and incest park. People that just want to be themselves, want to live their lives. These are the people that are receiving. So this is how we need to start thinking about stuff. Yes, give money to the Trevor Project. I mean, absolutely. I'm not telling you to stop that. I'm just telling you, you can also give money to Second Harvest Food Bank and do so much tangible good for our people right here, right now. We have to start thinking in a way where it is broader, where we are recognizing, hey, look, there's a local RFR chapter. I need to go to that. I need to show the fuck up once a month. I need to start an AU chapter if there isn't one in my area. I need to start going to school board meetings. I need to pick up trash. I need to give $5. I need to like that post on Facebook. There's a fucking million ways we can get involved. And I'm telling you, like, we can do it.
Yeah.
Takes a little time.
Can I rephrase that?
It does take a little time. Please.
A little bit?
Yeah,
just
please.
The way that I've conceptualized it, and then we'll get to our callers. I know we have callers. But what rankles me is the idea that we need to wait on legislation, which can take years. If we have an immediate need, and that immediate need can't wait 10, 15 years for a Senate or Congress to change in political leaning.
For sure.
Maybe it shouldn't be any of their fucking business. Maybe instead of depending on federal aid that can get pulled depending on the whim of a tyrant, we should be taking care of our own communities. And what you're offering up is pulling the power away from a system that can arbitrarily remove that, and instead putting it on us to take care of our neighbors.
We need deeper roots and stronger foundations, because they'll never be able to take that shit away. That'll never go away. And the legislation is downstream of us. And as we start to grow those types of institutions, as we start to build on a broad level, on a truly grassroots notion like that, there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do. And if you think I'm wrong, I have historical examples. We've got it, you guys. Anyway, I know we got callers. So I got excited. I've had a whole fun week of,
you're good.
Of heathenry and sinful nature, and I've been expressing all my demons today.
No worries. So I named the episode "Where's the Progress?"
Yeah.
Specifically because I wanted to incite these conversations. We do have a couple of callers. Let's start with Michael in New York, who's been waiting a half hour. The entire show been waiting to talk to us. Michael, you're live on the air. How's it going?
I'm well. How are you, Eric?
Doing well. Say hi to Elliot.
Hey,
Elliot. I'm familiar with your work. I've never spoken with you before, so glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for calling.
So what's up? What's going on?
Well, it's very timely given the topic that you picked, and also SR. I was listening to your story that you told at the beginning about having the conversation, and I'm sort of right there today. I've got a fiance who's lovely. Her parents continue to say inappropriate racist stuff and, anti-trans stuff, and think Trump's the greatest thing ever. And unfortunately, it's to the point where I'm saying, I'm not going to tolerate that. They're not coming to our wedding unless they can knock it off. Because first of all, I have a immediate sibling who's black. She's adopted, and I'm not going to put her in a room with that nonsense.
No.
I have to protect my loved ones. Second of all, I think nothing happens in a vacuum. And if you look at all this stuff you're talking about on the macro scale that society's screwed up about, that's going to change by little bits, everyone boots on the ground. So for all those reasons, I don't think it's an isolated incident. I'm not happy to just ignore it and leave it alone. I think that, like everyone else, they should be responsible for the things they want to say. The problem is, I come from an engineering background where everything's very fact-based, very rigorous, and if you can point out that somebody had a bad information or a bad assumption, they go, oh, okay, cool, and they sort of reverse that, and that's the habitat that I find myself in. And this is not that. It's bad faith, and as soon as you say, one example, we're going to support Trump because his economic plan is better, and you go, okay, well, here's an article of 27 Nobel Prize-winning economists that are saying that it's going to be worse. Then they just pivot and they come up with another reason, and so there's no intellectual honesty there. There's no integrity there, and so it's not a productive conversation because they're not really concerning themselves with being honest or telling the truth. And I really, really hate to just shut the door and say, you're not welcome in my family.
Yeah.
But I also am not going to keep beating my head against the wall, and I'm not going to keep engaging with bad faith, racist, inappropriate conversations and sort of give air to it either. So I'm just wondering sort of how each of you might, maybe if you had any advice on how I might want to navigate that.
Absolutely. So first thing I want to do is kind of help shore things up. So we're using a lot of secondhand, implied definitions of things that can come back and bite you in the butt in these circumstances. So you used a lot of different terms, but the two that I'm focusing on most are the ones in the notes for this call, and that's bad faith and honesty. So when you say someone is arguing in bad faith, what do you mean?
I mean, they are not concerned with whether the points they're making are true. They're just concerned with winning.
Okay. And when you say honesty, what do you mean?
I guess very, very similarly, like, when you point out that, hey, that point that you just made was not true, instead of acknowledging, oh, I was wrong about that, just move the goalposts or pivot. It's just bad. It's a bad argument. It's not about being productive. It's not about making progress. It's just about being right.
Okay. So I want to help shore these up just a little bit, and I think it'll help.
Okay.
So I don't think that they're being dishonest. I think somebody can honestly be a bigot. I think someone can honestly not know what they're talking about. And I think someone can honestly get really, really mixed up and confused about shit. And so if a person is being dishonest, to me, that means they know what they're saying is wrong, but they're saying it so that they can move their point forward. That's when I would claim someone is dishonest, right? If you have the evidence and it's clear that you understand the evidence and you are actively choosing to reject what you know to be true, then I would think that would be dishonest. So I don't think they're being dishonest. The other is bad faith. If we're going to talk about bad faith, I think we should talk about what a good faith argument is, right? And I have a couple different definitions, but I'd love to tag Elliot in. Elliot, what is a good faith argument to you?
I think one of the big things about a good faith argument, I'm getting a echo, is charitability to the other side.
Yeah.
Making sure that you're doing your best to understand where the other person is coming from as best you can, and representing yourself in a way as well with your argument that allows for some humility, right? You can still believe things very strongly, but also note, hey, this is my understanding, or this is what I've come across.
Yeah.
I think charitability and humility are very important in those things. So.
I agree. Michael, when I think about bad faith, or specifically being a charitable interlocutor, I think that you operate on a couple of assumptions. Number one, you assume that the other person is intelligent, that they are deserving of respect, and that even if they say something weird, your assumption should be that maybe they said it poorly, but not that they're stupid and wrong, or wrong or right. And so if you can do those things, right, if you can behave in a way that gives them the benefit of the doubt, that sees them as a person, and like, if somebody is not doing those things, I would say that they're arguing in bad faith. So your example of your soon to be in-laws, does that get more specific on what you think bad faith would be in the way that they've behaved?
Somewhat. There is some actual dishonesty there as well. I mean, my fiance, one of the topics that, I'm very even keeled. I don't escalate. I don't raise my voice. It actually irritates people sometimes. But she struggles to sort of be assertive with them. She gets very upset because they're her parents.
Yeah.
And she picked out a book on one of the topics that her parents were saying bigoted stuff about. And she said to her Mom, will you read this book with me? I'll buy you a copy. We'll read it together. And when we're done, we'll talk about it. And she said, sure. And my fiance read the whole book. And her mom lied, never read it. Just said she would read it and then didn't. That's dishonest. We're making efforts. I'm really on the train of, I want them to be in my life. I want to have both sides of the family at my wedding, and I want to sit around the table and have good conversation with them and all that. But I feel, again, we have to start with, well, first you need to just acknowledge the accountability factor here of the things that you're saying, sure, and the damage that's done. I'm making as good, as honest of an effort as I can to get there.
Yeah, and let me jump in for a second, Michael. Again, I just want to remind you that I'm just some dickhead on the internet. I sure don't have all the answers to anything. But I can help point to some people that are more knowledgeable on things. And Dr. Daryl Ray is a phenomenal person to listen to. The founder of Secular Therapy Project and Recovering from Religion. Been around for a really long time. Another really great person to listen to is a guy named Anthony Magnavosco. One of the big champions of street epistemology, one of the founder of Street Epistemology International, phenomenal nonprofit organization, just like RFR and stuff. And those guys talk a lot about this kind of stuff. And one of the things I remember Dr. Ray saying a long time ago that I heard and really, really liked was somebody was calling in with kind of a similar situation. There are these people close in my life, not exactly like directly, but they're very close. These are your in-laws. These aren't like your parents, but still, this is a big deal. These are people that are important to you. They matter in your life. They obviously matter, to your fiance's life and stuff. And they were struggling with how to continue that relationship. And they were asking, should I give him a book or should I send him videos or what should I do? And Dr. Ray started off by saying, well, first off, I mean, what is your goal? Like, honestly, if the goal really is at the end of the day, I want these people to completely 180 degree change their beliefs after a conversation with me, I'm going to be honest, that's probably not going to happen. Right. And that's a bummer. And I know that's a bummer. That is a bummer. Right. But he said something even better after that, which is, if your goal is to get them to respect you and demonstrate by not saying these things that hurt you, that they respect you and care for you, well, that's actually a lot more possible. It's not 100% easy, snap the fingers and it happens, right? And honestly, it doesn't always happen. And knowing, hey, that is a possibility, and really wrestling with that with yourself. If your goal is to have these people in your life no matter what, well, then there you go, right? You kind of know what the route is. If your goal is to have a compromise with these people where you both engage in a respectful and loving way to each other, well, that means there's some give and take. And they're going to have to give a little. And you might have to take a little. And then next week, they might have to take a little and you give a little. But you keep navigating that together.
Yeah, I disagree. We have different approaches. And yours is probably healthier.
Yeah, please.
No, yours is, I do want to outline this. Yours is probably healthier.
Wow, I don't know about that. I appreciate that.
So I'll do the same thing Elliot did. We're both assholes on the internet. We're not therapists, and we're especially not your therapist. Okay, Michael?
Understood.
Okay. So here's my half-baked opinion. Because you tuned in. This is your fault, Michael. So
Hey man, I give you $10 a month, so it's completely my fault.
hey, all right, good, appreciate it, thank you. If you want to become a patron, please consider going to patreon.com. If I don't forget to charge patrons in a month, it really helps. Forgot last month, Elliot. It was the worst. Right now. It is the worst. Anyway, Michael, you said you're an engineer, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's treat this like an engineer, right? You want a relationship with this family, but it's rocky, it's not solid. You cannot depend on them in a way that you want to. So let's treat it like building a bridge, right? Or you know, a solid structure across the water. If you see on the other end that the ground is not stable, then it's impossible to build a solid bridge, no matter how much you do on your side, right?
Sure, and to clarify, SR, I think your advice is very good advice. However, my goal is not per se to have a relationship with them. It's that a blanket rule that I have for myself, given my life experiences, is that I don't give airtime and space in my world to people who are hateful and say hateful things. So I'm not going to grant them an exception just because they related to my fiance. So I'm willing to say, hey, let's have a conversation about this. And let's navigate some of this stuff, because I would like to give you space in my life, but you're not going to get a magical exception and be the only two racist people in my world. That's what it is. It's about me. Before I slam that door, let's have a nice dialogue about it.
And honestly, my response to that is, fuck yeah, Michael. Like, I genuinely believe that is exactly the right way to do this. You have a personal stance that you are not willing to compromise on. And honestly, I think it's the right one. And now that's just totally my opinion on that. Maybe we're both idiots and we're both totally wrong. But no, fuck yeah, man. I think hell yeah. Hey guys, look, I want you in the life, but here's just the way it's gonna go. I don't compromise on this, period. And I don't compromise on you going around being a piece of shit in my presence, period, end of sentence. And if they respond by saying, you know what, actually, we're going to continue to be pieces of shit, I think you know exactly what the answer is to that, man. I think you got this.
To give kind of lived experience on as an example, I have some family that refuses to understand my partner's pronouns, and I used to see them all the time, and now I don't. And they said, "How come you don't visit anymore?" And I said, "Because you don't use my partner's pronouns." They said, "I don't think we should be punished for our worldview." I said, "It's not punishing you. It's extremely uncomfortable. What you're doing makes me really uncomfortable. And because of that, I don't want to spend so much time around you." And
not only that, but I think also your actions have consequences. And so if you go around and, actively platform and encourage other people to put a racist in power, for example, that's not free. That doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? Like, people's lives, including mine, are actively degraded by the consequences of your shitty decisions. And I think it's reasonable to say, okay, well, now you're going to be accountable. Like, I've done bad stuff in my life. We all have. I was held accountable for my crappy decisions. And I'm just saying that should be true for everybody. You don't get a free pass. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. I don't think that's crazy. And I hope also, and this might get me yelled at a little bit, but I'm just going to throw it out there anyway. I hope that we are also giving, the other side of that charity too, which is not every single person that, let's just as an example, voted for Trump in the last election is an unredeemable piece of shit that you can't talk to and have conversation with. There are some people in this world that closing the door on is 100% absolutely the right thing. And there are others that have done things wrong, just like all of us, and are attempting to make amends. There is 100%. A line to some 100%. People.
And if I thought there was no chance, I wouldn't be going down this avenue to begin with.
Absolutely. And that's what I think is, it's so difficult. It is so difficult when you are on the side of somebody berating and attacking and all of this, to like also still be like, well, they were kind of abused by the system too. They were also hurt. It's insanely fucking difficult. And I don't fault anybody for being like, you know what, man, I don't got the spoons for that this day or this week or this interaction. Abso-fucking-lutely, man. But truly, it sounds to me, Michael, you really have a good head on this, man, and you are handling this really well. So
yeah,
well, thank you.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You cannot force someone to be a good person, and like. I
don't think I can. I just want acknowledgement. I literally just, hey, I recognize now that what I did was negatively impacted you and a bunch of other people, like, for example, my fiance, who till very recently ran a nonprofit for, LGBTQ and, marginalized youth, and all these executive orders on day one just undid like 10 years of her life's work. And she's upset about that. And her mom can't understand why she's upset about that. That type of thing. Just like, hey, man, you need to just acknowledge to me that your decisions had consequences directly for me, directly for your daughter, for the people you claim to love. I'm just looking for an acknowledgement on that. That's it. It's not a heated thing. I'm not getting emotional. Just very basic.
I think implicit, that is the response if they say, what can I do to fix things? That is how you respond when they say that. But until they say that, keeping that distance is, to me, the right thing to do. What I was going to say is essentially a version of what you two just talked about. And that is that if you can't build a bridge, then logistically, if you still need to get across, you set up a ferry service. And if the ferry if ferry comes up once a day and people get pissed off that they don't have the luxury of moving over your foundations weren't good for it.
Yeah.
And I can say, like, I turned 38 3 days ago. And
happy birthday.
Thank you. And I have learned that if I'm just honest with my family when they make me really uncomfortable, and I say, hey, you're doing this thing, and because of that, I'm going to spend less time around you if that's the case, because it is not an enjoyable thing to be around you for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
They don't complain. It has actually gotten way, way easier, because it's very hard to complain when you're told exactly what's going on, and you're not saying, you're not litigating, oh, well, here's a proper response. It's, here's what you did. This makes me uncomfortable. I'm choosing not to be around that. And at some point, if they go, well, I want to have a relationship with you, then that's where that response goes. And, well, I just want acknowledgement and all of that. But until then, fuck no, don't invite them to your wedding. And if they say, well, how come I didn't get to go to the wedding? Well,
here's why.
Did we talk about it?
Uh-huh.
Did we tell you that what you're doing makes us extremely uncomfortable and we don't want to be around that? Well, if that's the case, then why are you fucking asking?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and it's totally on them, But
and real quick,
yeah.
I would just say this. I'm going to say the word pushback just because I feel like when we say that, it helps us move the conversation. But I'm not really pushing that back, pushing back that hard, Michael. But I think you should be a little emotional, because it is emotional. Because what has happened, in part, not at maybe not the most important thing, right? Like, I think the general conversation of like, hey, we just shouldn't be shitty people, right? Like morals and stuff. Like, yeah, sure, that's at the core of this. But also, like, let's just be real. Like, you guys hurt my feelings. You hurt your daughter's feelings. Like, don't you care about your daughter living a happy and healthy and successful life? Maybe they don't. Right? But give them that opportunity. Remind them for just a second that, yes, in fact, there are emotions involved, because we as humans are emotional creatures. And that is important. There's a reason that they played that fucking Sarah McLachlan song over those sad puppies, man. It's because it fucking hits you in the heartstrings. And we have to remind people. We have to tell the personal stories that involve the emotions. One of the most critical things for the nation, the Republic of Ireland, the most restrictive country in the world for abortion access at the time. A handful of years ago, they started a grassroots campaign that completely changed the entirely religiously focused law restricting human rights and access to Medicare or medical treatment, right? One of the biggest things that they did in that campaign was they focused on the emotional aspect. They told the stories of thousands of women who had to stand in line, bleeding out, had to lay in a fucking bed by themselves for days, not knowing if they were going to be conscious again. They told those stories over and over and over and reminded people that that's your family. Those are the people that you care about. That shit does matter. And if they turn right around and they slap you in the face and they say, I don't give a damn about any of that, that might just be your answer. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I just to clarify what I meant, obviously it's an emotional issue for me. You know, we're both bothered by it. It's just that I don't go to where they go, which is raising the voice and yelling. And like, I don't escalate in that sense.
Yes.
I'm very motivated by my feelings about this. Clearly, I just don't let them drive the boat. So if we're going to continue the nautical metaphors, Eric, I don't give them control. Right. I maintain a good demeanor.
There's no amount of negotiation that's going to make a bridge over, unsteady ground safer. So, I think that, the version of the example you gave, Elliot, is one that's a lot more abbreviated, and that is, here's the story of what you did. That's why I'm not in your life. and if I don't even ask the question, do you care? Because I don't care. If you want to demonstrate that you care, awesome. If you're wondering why you're not involved, it's because you did this. And there's no negotiation about it. You did a thing. Here's what happened. Until then, not up for negotiation. If something is not up for negotiation, then asking why do you care just opens it up to, I think, people saying, people trying to provide justification for their bigotry. And I think that works on like a larger stage for like public support of a thing. Mm-hmm. But for an abusive parent, or a bigoted family member who is making your life less okay, I would say keep engagement to a minimum, and when they bitch about it, tell them it's because you did this.
Right. No, and I think that second part's important because, I was years ago on the receiving end of someone who said, I don't want to continue a relationship with you, but based on something that they didn't discuss with me and something that they were not correct about. They didn't have correct information about what had occurred. And that doesn't feel good for someone to make a decision without, having an honest dialogue with you about it. So I don't want to do the same thing. I want to make sure that there is an avenue for a dialogue to occur. It's just that they don't really seem to be interested in it. Yeah. That's the difference.
And I don't know. I have done wrong by people in my life. I've fucked up in different ways. Yeah. And I've had people say, Eric, I cannot have you in my life anymore. Maybe they were hurt from a thing that happened or whatever the case is. Never have I actually been personally upset by that. You know what I mean?
I would only be personally upset by it if they're operating off of a incorrect understanding of the facts, because then it's not my fault.
Well, intent and impact, right? You can intend one thing, but if your impact is awful, example. I was there for a friend during a really, really shitty breakup. I was there for them every day. And afterward, they hung out with me less. And I wondered why. And it's because they associated me with the awful part in their life when they were going through this really shitty breakup. Like, I didn't do anything wrong, but they were very clear. They didn't hem and haw about it. They were just like, oh, you feel you are tethering me to a part in my life that I'm trying to get past. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah. But we do have a couple other callers. I want to make sure that we get to them. Michael, thank you for calling in. Thank you for supporting the show. I really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure, and I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's important. So, and SR, thank you as well.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Bye.
See, this is where it's tough because I feel like I want to put you in front of everyone who has a platform, because telling stories is exactly the way you do it. But
I think you were misunderstanding a little bit what I was getting at there.
I may have. Yeah, what's up?
That doesn't matter. It's not. We don't need to go through it. I think it was well on display what we were saying, but it doesn't matter. We're not. There's no point.
I'm sorry.
No. It's
my
not a problem.
intent and my impact. Honestly, I will own my impact regardless of my intent. I love you.
Yeah, well, I think we all said a lot of really great things, and truly, I think Michael's handling this very well. I really do think if he continues kind of on the path that he's been going and describing, I really do think that's the way we should all do it. I understand that sometimes we don't all have the energy for that, and I don't fault anybody for it,
Yeah. Again, I would make a terrible therapist. I'm so
oh man,
like I put up with so much less shit than I used to.
I mean, just kick down the fucking door, tell them they're a bastard, like do it.
Yeah, I kind of do that. I wasn't always this way.
Not good therapy. Good therapy practice.
No, that's fair. That's fair. This is why I preface it. I need you here as the good cop. You'll be the angel on the shoulder, my friend. Let's talk to Jay in Florida. Hey, Jay. You have an interesting topic, and oh my goodness. So, Elliot, do you have a call-in studio up? Have you seen what Jay's calling in about?
No, I've been a bad co-host. I'm very sorry. I was not. Yeah.
You're good. You just get to be surprised.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So, Jay, you want to talk about the progress and intersection of whiteness?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So, just like how you were talking to the last caller, completely forgot his name. Brain does that. So it's just how whenever he's talking to his soon-to-be in-laws, they seem to have this maybe aversion to changing their points of view on something that has been shown to them to be inaccurate, right? It maybe they're not being malicious in their intent, but just this change doesn't seem to be amicable to their worldview or how they want to see the world around themselves. And when we look back at history, we see this happening with almost every single form of progress that we try to do, whether it be in terms of desegregation, whether it be in terms of removing slavery. If there isn't enough, when I say enough in quotes, white people that support this agenda, the agenda dies. The agenda doesn't grow.
I would, if I could just generalize it a little bit more. I think it's just the group in the majority or the group in power. Like, because for instance, like I would probably argue like maybe in India or in China, like white people starting to get involved in particular, social movements may not be the fact. But I think what you're saying though, Jay, is exactly what I have tried to say to people for a very long time. Is that yes, like I get that these things don't affect you. I get that this isn't your cause du jour. I get that this seems to be something that's outside of you. But that's the whole point of the fucking quote. First they came for the Jews and I said nothing because I'm not Jewish. Then they came for the Catholics and I said nothing because I'm not Catholics. Then they came for the Roma and I said nothing because I'm not Roma. Then they came for me because nobody was there to say anything. It's the whole fucking point. And I totally agree with where your head is. Like, this is something that you need to get involved in because it doesn't affect you. Your voice will be more powerful when you are sitting there as somebody in that hierarchical class that is already by very birth, you are already put in a position of privilege. Yes, you have to speak up. You are important, you know? Now, with that being said, and I think you'd probably agree with this, Jay. I mean, but it's the first time we've talked, as far as I know, but I think you'd probably agree with this, which is what in large part the majority and that class, you know, should be doing is championing the voices and the stories of those people from those communities, right? That should be one of the biggest things that you do. But yeah, you got to get fucking involved. I mean, if it doesn't affect you, that's the cause you should be fighting for, because it absolutely will die if it is left to the people that are continually being marginalized further and further and you know, killed off, right?
Right.
Anyway, I'm very excited today, so I ramble a lot. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
So-
I generally do agree with you, but there's another part to it that I like to consider, and that's the power dynamic. Because the things that would necessarily benefit the lower class or the people who are being subjugated doesn't necessarily affect or work in the favor of the people who are in power. So those who are in power will do just about anything to remain in power or keep control of that power. So in many ways, it is in the interest of those in power at this moment, whites, to keep doing those things to perpetuating this form of whiteness so that they remain in power and in control. And I get that it's scary to say, oh, we're going to let the brown people have a say and we're going to let them have a seat at the table. It could be scary, but I don't really understand why that fear, quote unquote, leads to this form of, someone said Gestapo in the chat, which I agree with, this some of Gestapo way of looking at people and treating people. That's the part I don't really understand, right? So I do get that we do need to talk to them and that some of them are disingenuous. They don't want to change. They don't want to see the progress because they have either one blamed brown people for their issue or have accepted the fact that it's these other people who are at fault, not necessarily people in power like the politicians who are getting kickbacks from all these lobbyists and all those other things. They don't see that as a problem because they probably do the same thing in the same position, but they blame this other set of people. And not to draw the Hitler comparison, but that's pretty much exactly what happened in Germany, right? They just picked a group of people, scapegoated them, and then basically removed them from society.
So I know that Jay, you're usually in the after show.
Yeah.
I did see in the comments people are, is that RJ? It's RJ. And so were you there last week?
No, I didn't. I missed last week.
No?
I was working.
Oh my God, we had a whole ass conversation on racism with Tori. But Tori brought up a distinction that I think we should maybe talk about a little bit more. And that is, you know, using a little bit more language of the difference between race, ethnicity, and nationality. So how are those different, right? Your nationality is where the country you reside, right? There, you can be a different race and be in the United States and be an American. That's your nationality.
Right.
Or you could be, your ethnicity is kind of genetic makeup, right? So I look at my ethnicity and I see that I have family with roots in Mexico and some family even in England and in Central America. That's my ethnicity. So if we dealt with nationality already, and we dealt with ethnicity, which is your roots, then where you're from, what is race? Right? Like, what's left? I think that's where whiteness is. Whiteness is not a nationality, and it's not an ethnicity. But it is an important label that we talk about. So, Elliot, when did Italian people start becoming white, do you think?
Oh, yeah. I want to say the Italian immigration came in the late 1800s. And so it wasn't until like 40s and 50s we really started incorporating a lot more Italians into the United States as being white.
Right.
I could be off on that though, but
No, you're good. I think that Ukrainians are becoming more and more white over the last decade.
oh yeah,
But whiteness,
Jewish people weren't white
Jewish people
for
were
years in the
not white
United
at
States.
all. No,
Yeah,
but now
yeah,
they
you weren't
are.
considered. Yeah,
So it's not a nationality. It's not an ethnicity. What it is,
it's really not about culture either.
No, it's
Correct.
not. Whiteness only exists to separate the people who are empowered, and this is just in the United States, right? The empowered group from the disempowered group, and it's always been along racial lines, or it's always been along. Yeah, right. They create. I feel like race in
I
this
like the
way
term
that we're talking
colorism.
about it. Yeah, it has always been about the color of your skin, and so whiteness is just a club that only exists to be separate from.
Yeah, and this is
Brown and black people. Like I know I'm
Yes.
brown, Jay's black.
no.
Like we're.
I'm sorry to
Oh, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry to jump in just because I think this is really a very fascinating topic and one that you can see how it has played out in other cultures, right? Because a lot of times we'll get very focused on the United States, right, and the Western European expansion and conquest of the earth, of the earth and so forth. But you can see colorism very explicitly in ancient Hindu texts. You can see colorism very explicitly in ancient Southeast Asian texts. Like you can see these people very explicitly doing exactly what Eric is saying. We're separating these people and saying, "Look, you're a bit darker than we like," like literally taking fucking paint swatches up to people and going, eggshell. Nope, that's too far. My bad. Like, and that is something that has existed throughout human culture across the board. And then in the 1500s, when that became systematized in a way of the European colonization of the world and stuff, yeah, I mean, we really, really, spread that and really, really locked that shit in. I mean, where were white people in Argentina? Where were white people in Brazil? Like, no, they didn't exist. We imported all these fucking Spaniards and Portuguese and English and German and all these motherfuckers, So yeah, I mean, this colorism runs deep with us as a species, and it's just this arbitrary thing that at the end of the day we keep kind of amorphously shifting only for the purposes of making our side still in power. Because again, like, yeah, all of a sudden in the 50s it was like, you know what, we do like Jews, y'all are white, come with us.
Italians are fine, they're okay now.
Right, all of a sudden we're like, you know what, actually we don't like those people are the bad.
All of that is to say, when we're talking about conversations around whiteness and creating white allies, and forging those communities, I think that one thing white allies can do is start breaking down the idea of whiteness. You do have, I'm talking to white viewers. You do have a nationality, and you do have an ethnicity. You should celebrate those things. And you should also break down whiteness, because whiteness only exists to segregate. That is its purpose. That's what it is here for. And so when we are communicating with a group and we say the whites, we have already segregated ourselves away. And I think that until we can celebrate our differences and recognize that kind of unity and collaboration, as long as we see whiteness as a thing that exists, we're kind of fucked. Like, I don't know. When you're talking about, even in the notes, it says you want to talk about progress in the intersection of whiteness. And I don't know how whiteness intersects when it is a country club that is changing its membership just to make sure that they're the ones in charge. Like, how do you talk about that intersection?
hmm And I think that's the concern I have, because I have friends who are like Cuban Americans, and how they speak is in many ways extremely conservative, right? And a lot of them
Mhm.
be like, yeah, when I came to the US, I wanted to be all about this country. And I was like, I get you want to be about the country, but why is it that you picked this slant to pick up and not the progressive side, not the side where America goes, yeah, everybody should be treated equal. Everybody deserves their right to have their voice heard. Why isn't that the side that you picked up? And then I realized that it's because of this power imbalance that's there, why they seem to kind of shift to that side more, where they think I have a better chance of winning or gaining control or gaining
Yeah.
something if I go with this side, which is
Yes, and
restricted.
that was something that I was a little bit, I gotta say, disappointed with a lot of the political pundits and the individuals that are supposed to be, on the front lines, finger on the pulse of the electorate and stuff after this last election, because there was a noticeable shift in the self-described Latino community voting for the right this time. Right now, granted, let's just first off, let's just actually know the numbers aren't like fucking crazy. Okay, it's not like 90% to 10% or anything. We're talking like
Right.
55%. Which is still technically a shift, and that is an important shift, and we should understand this. But I was a little disappointed with the fact that there are all of these people that supposedly have been in this space for years in terms of the electorate, right? And we're deeply, deeply confused that the people you're describing, Jay, your Cuban American friend, have those views. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've known this for a decade and a half. I've known that throughout that community, especially in the South, there is a lot more of that conservatism. And in large part, I would agree. It's because of this understanding that to get ahead, to be allowed access to even the grounds of the country club, you have to fit a very particular mold. And what is that mold? Well,
Whatever
that mold is this. Yep, that mold is that amorphous blob that they call whiteness, and that is what you have to fit into. And if that changes over time, then that changes over time, and that's okay. They don't care, because they just keep moving forward. The party of Ronald Reagan currently has a huge base of people that both dislike immigrants to this country. Individuals that Ronald Reagan once proudly said on national television are the truest of Americans because they chose to be American. Those are the people we should champion. That party hates those people. Also, the same party, by the way, now champions the autocracy in Russia. Absolutely absurd, but it doesn't matter, because it's whiteness, because it changes to fit them, and allowing them, all of a sudden Latinos are okay. Why? Because they also look at those brown people and hate them too. I mean, absolutely. It's ridiculous and fascinating all at the same time.
Yeah, caveat to that is not all Latinos. There's certain ones that are okay, but these other ones are they're not there yet, which is what I'm seeing. Like the Venezuelans are not there yet. Cubans are fine, apparently.
Right. And the rest of them, you just gotta, and that's the thing. Puerto Ricans have this weird place, because we can let them in a little bit, right? But if we let them in too much, they might be a state, and we don't want that, We gotta keep them at arm's length. I know it's really really interesting. And again, when you look through a lot of these other ancient cultures that have been around for a really, really long time, you will see that colorism come through, and you will see right from the beginning that it is truly both a completely arbitrary and harmful system, and also one that it is so pervasive that even to this day we will see these things played out and presented to us as completely normal. There was a huge uproar a decade or so ago in the People's Republic of China, because there was a detergent commercial where they took a darker skinned Chinese man, threw him in a washing machine and poured bleach in and pulled out a lighter skinned Chinese man.
They still do that in the Philippines.
Of course they do.
Yeah, I saw
Of
that
course
one.
they do.
I saw that one.
This is everywhere. This is and again, it's that same concept of the power structure and the, if you're just close enough to the mold we want. And I think this is definitely a conversation that, and I'm pleased to say this is a conversation that is being had more and more, I think, but one that still we need to make a lot more progress on, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Hey Jay, let's pick the rest of this up in the after show. Are you going to be in the after show today?
Sure. Yeah, I'll be there.
All right. If y'all want to join in the after show, but we're not done. We have more calls. But if y'all want to join in the after show, link is in the description. We'd love to see you there. John, thank you. Or Jay, thank you for calling.
No problem. See you later.
Take care. I like Jay. Jay's a sweet guy.
Yeah. I'm getting excited today. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
Well, I do have an order of business very quickly. John in Canada, are you there?
I'm here.
You want to talk about wokeness? Is that right?
Yeah, I heard you talking to the other caller, and you're talking about woke.
No, I was not saying woke. I do want to say, get thee behind me, Satan. Call when Tori's here. Bye-bye. And I dropped him. All right, now that order of business is done, we can move on to the next call. Chris in Scotland, you are live on the show. How's it going, Chris?
Hi there. That was an exceedingly quick call.
Get thee behind
yeah, I'm doing
me.
Okay.
Thank you for calling. You wanted to talk about religious extremism in Scotland, right? Where you are? Like, what's going on? What's on your mind?
Okay, so in Britain, as obviously in America, I've noticed this backslide in terms of since sort of 2020 and COVID. I've noticed in the UK, both in Scotland and England, I've noticed this thing where there's more and more people who are leaning into sort of far-right mindsets and who are particularly leaning into conspiracy theories in terms of the COVID vaccine, in terms of, this idea that, trans people are trying to corrupt the children and, and as well as that in terms of sort of religious extremism. I've noticed this uptick in people sort of becoming more and more religious, but also sort of more, not just more religious, but the form of religion they seem to take on seems to be a bit more extreme. Only yesterday I had a guy chatting to me. He was a sort of a street preacher type, and he was sitting telling me that because he was sitting condoning basically the death penalty, which is not something we have in Britain anymore, and saying that, we should love God because if we don't love him, he will send us to hell to be tortured for all eternity. And when I tried to highlight to him that, does that not seem a little bit, dubious to you that, you have to love him or he'll torture you? He said, yes, but he's a loving God. And I've just noticed more and more of this sort of religious zealotry going on, and it often seems to be people who are right wing who tend to be, and I don't know that that's necessarily the case in America. It seems to be people who are quite right wing who often seem to be massive conspiracy theorists, who often seem to lean towards sort of religious, fundamentalism. And I was wondering if this is something that you've noticed in particular since 2020. It wasn't something I'd really found in Britain much before that, but I think with a lot of the COVID stuff, I think we've sort of picked up a lot of America's sort of conspiracy theories and whatnot.
I definitely don't want to take responsibility for stuff that's going on your side of the pond. We've already taken enough.
No, of course.
So I do want to make sure that you guys get your own fair share of it. Like, I feel like where you're at, well, not Scotland, but definitely England is leading the world in trans bigotry.
Yes.
But when it comes to religious zealotry, Chris.
Yes.
The United States was founded by Christian religious zealots that were so bonkers, they left England to go and do their crazy shit elsewhere.
I know. The whole Puritan thing. Yeah.
I cannot begin to tell you how woven into the fabric of this nation puritanical bullshit is. I get. What's interesting to me is like I grew up around a lot of Christianity, and so the idea of that not existing, before, or not as much, is very foreign to me. So the best I can do is like listen and go, this is your experience. I don't live in Scotland, so if there has been a huge uptick, I am so fucking sorry. But does that mean that, do you feel like Scottish folks are kind of unprepared for the zealots that are now more ubiquitous?
Well, the thing is, Scotland has always been a fairly religious country, but that had been dying down more and more over the last few decades. Even where I used to live a few decades ago, or at least a couple of decades ago, nothing was open on Sunday. Mm-hmm. But it's just sort of been dying down more and more. But since 2020, there's been an uptick in this sort of, not even just religion, but the form of religion seems to be a lot more fundamental than what I've experienced before. And it seems to largely be tied into conspiracy theories and, sort of right-wing ideologies. I'm not quite sure why.
Well, one thing I'll say is, and this is why I focus on this quite a lot, Chris. I have definitely seen more than enough evidence to indicate that the likelihood that an individual will believe any conspiracy theory presented to them or any unfounded conclusion, right, that uses poor methodology is based on whether or not they already have accepted things like that. That is why I think the methodology for us coming to sound conclusions is so important. It just so happens that utilizing that will lead one to a non-religious stance. That's what I think. I think that can be demonstrated. But truly, at the end of the day, what is underlying all of this for me is that proper understanding of how to form reliable conclusions. It doesn't mean they're 100% accurate, but it does mean that the likelihood is so much higher that they are in fact sound. And that's important. And I think that's why we see such a, not every flat earther is a young earth creationist, and not every young earth creationist is Christian, but it's a damn lot of them. And I think in large part, one of the reasons is because they have accepted poor critical thinking skills in other places already. And they are utilizing those regularly. And we as people, despite the fact that clearly hypocrisy exists, right? Despite the fact that cognitive dissonance is definitely a thing all of us experience, at least, a little bit.
Indeed.
We as people do value consistency. We do value consistency in a lot of ways. And because individuals have already started utilizing a method that seems to work out, right? They keep fucking using it in everything else. And sure, this time it might be a little innocuous. Like maybe Arthur Conan Doyle really did believe that, fairies were a thing and they would spring up in gardens, and I don't know that that's really causing a shit ton of harm. I mean, sure, you might pay $50 for a fairy detective class or a certificate, but other than that, I don't know that there's like wars being fought over. So maybe that's not super great. Maybe that's not too terrible, right? The problem is, it's that same pattern of thinking that leads one to say other very untrue, very demonstrably harmful things like we have done throughout history. And that, unfortunately, it's all because of that pattern of thinking. And so that's why I think you see that huge overlap.
I think it's further exacerbated too. Just to like I feel like what you're talking about is how like Gen Z and Gen Alpha are getting radicalized by slowly giving into really, really weird magical thinking and then kind of building out in that direction. But the other side,
that's a worry as well.
Well, the other side though is like they're being reinforced by people alive today who are fucking like. Chris, I'm gonna bring something up that I am woefully unqualified to bring up. So
okay.
Are you ready to be witness to me putting my foot in my mouth in a really profound way?
Absolutely.
Okay. In Ireland, when was the Troubles?
Oh, I don't know that off by hand. I think it was from the 70s, possibly up until the 90s. Wait a minute. I can find out exactly.
Late 60s. So Scotland's involvement in the Troubles, right?
So it started in 1968 and it ended in 1998.
So 1998, a lot of people watching this were alive then, and are still alive. And a lot of the people who were around for the Troubles are still alive. Mm-hmm. And are actually the generation who owns the most property. They are the wealthiest generation, at least here in the United States. I think that we forget that periods of religious sectarian violence is so recent in our history that we can still talk to and interact with those people who were there or involved. And I think that it's one thing like Elliot, I feel like it exacerbates what you're saying so much more, because if it was just Gen Z and Gen Alpha like not figuring out how to be rational, or not figuring out how to be, thorough in their investigation of things, like it being reinforced with a generation that's still around, it's easy to find people alive who never put down the sectarian violence, that never put down the hate. And I think that's just as true in the United States as it is in Scotland. And that is that, it's 2025 and we can still meet and know and sit down with the organizers of civil rights. It's not just a historic thing that is in our past. It is currently living and voting today, and that access to it is just such a multiplicative factor. Like it makes everything so much more serious knowing that, I don't know if we're backsliding. It might feel that way, but if we look at that history, are we?
In some places,
all I would say in terms of the Troubles and things like that, it wasn't purely about religion. Part of it was about sort of England and the UK sort of trying to essentially colonize. Yeah. And sort of Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, trying to fight back. And a lot of that stuff that went on in Ireland, because there was a massive amount of Irish immigration to Scotland, because it's right across the channel, because of that a lot of that exists in Scotland now, where even in Scotland we have what is called the Orange Walk, which occurred recently, which is people who support William of Orange and who are Protestant, who sort of go out marching every July and there's a lot of there's a lot of sectarianism in Scotland as well, and it's mixed up in our football for some reason. Where
that's not surprising.
Particularly two teams called Celtic and Rangers in Glasgow, where essentially one team is largely representative of sort of Catholic anti-unionist sentiment, whereas the other is largely Protestant and pro-unionist, and so that sort of sectarianism still exists quite prominently, and it's a sort of weird melting pot of competition, politics, religion.
It's so interesting hearing about that. Like, no joke, Chris, I feel like if I put you in the American Northeast, put you in Boston and Catholic and pro-union, it's just such a big thing.
Really? Wow. I wouldn't have thought that.
It's absolutely wild that, those things aren't intrinsically tied, but yeah, so I guess I put it forward again to both of you. Where's the progress? The name of the episode. Like, have we made progress, or did we just forget how bad things have always been? Are we looking at ourselves through rose-tinted glasses a bit? Like, are we backsliding, or are we just seeing and getting our footing,
I do think we have made progress. I know it is difficult to feel that a lot of times, especially when we are seeing what feels like resurgences of a lot of these very old talking points, right? I think that is part of the key, though. If we're recognizing a resurgence, right, of authoritarianism, if we're recognizing a resurgence of a restriction on human rights, right, if we're recognizing resurgences of poor critical thinking skills, I think what that says to me is that for a while we were going down, and that doesn't mean that will always happen. And I hate that we have to have this reminder, but apparently we do. And so let's use this opportunity. Now that we've all been shaken up, now that we all got smacked in the face and went, oh shit, human rights aren't guaranteed, let's guarantee them. Let's enforce them for forever. Let's put safeguards and institutions in place that require transparency and a search for truth. You won't be able to be corrupt in the new system. You won't be able to force people against their will. You can't, because there will be so many safeguards and institutions in place. Now, don't say to me, hey man, that's some, utopian, way too optimistic. No, fuck that. No, we can make this world better in a way that guarantees certain liberties to people. We have done it in the past. We're still not perfect on stuff, but there was a period of time. Where you looked at another human being in the eyes and you nodded in full agreement as we stood there in broad daylight and said, hell yeah, some people are property. And now those numbers have dwindled. Does the international slave trade still occur? Absolutely. And we should do everything in our power every day to stop it. But let's not forget 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, there was no recourse. There was no other system. We have made progress, but we can't stop. And we gotta step it up. We gotta change what we've been doing, and we've gotta level it the fuck up already. Because otherwise, this type of stuff keeps happening. I know I said
absolutely.
No, that's okay. I both of you have very valid things, and in speaking to one, I don't want to invalidate the other. I think both of you are wonderful.
Invalidate me. I'm the guest.
I've invalidated you like 3 times today. I feel like I do that every episode. I do want to speak to is that a sentiment that is felt in Scotland too? Because I know that rings very heavy in the United States, and I do want to challenge that with Elliot. But before I do, I want to know how much that applies in Scotland. You know, does it feel like there's progress? Is there a sense of growth, or like what does it look like over there?
I mean, I felt like for quite a long time we were progressing. It's just, and I think we are still progressing to some extent, although, as you mentioned, in the UK, although Scotland's approach is slightly different, I would say that in some ways we're a bit more progressive, or at least we were. The UK is obviously, it's coming out with some dodgy, legal stuff in terms of trans issues, and I'm profoundly outspoken about that. But I do feel like we were progressing for quite a while. It's more just in the last few years, I think COVID really did have an impact on a lot of people, and people were spending a large amount of time just online absorbing stuff without necessarily much social contact. But I think overall we are making progress, and I do hear a lot of these conspiracy theories, and they do really worry me. Because it's not just a bit of fun. I mean, these are things that really impact people's lives, and people just seem oblivious to the harm that they do sometimes. But I do feel like overall we are progressing. I just feel like we've hit a bit of a bump in the road potentially.
I appreciate both of you. I think I need people like you too in my life.
I want to just go ahead and, before you even say any more, Eric, if you are, and to everyone out there too, I mean, if you are hearing me and Chris and you're saying like you're champing at the bit, and you're like, what, guy, we gotta keep, come on, like what the fuck, like it's still not, like, oh my God, please say that more, say that louder, get out, do stuff, start getting involved more. Like, you are the people that are going to make sure that we don't become complacent, that we don't stop fighting. We need those people that are going to keep pushing us. And we also need the people to remind us of the victories that we have had, right? That's a fantastic thing. That's a practice that I've done in therapy. We all have those moments where we sit down and we just go like, man, everything's fucked up, and they go like, yeah, I totally get that, man. Like what? Give me an example. And you go, well, I mean, just all of it. Well, and they go, yeah, cool. Give me an example. And you go, well, I mean, my car's okay, and my friends are cool, and I got a job, and we need a moment to recognize the things we have accomplished, and we also need a moment to say, but we can't stop there. Sorry, I stepped all over you.
No, that's okay. I want that to be fresh in people's minds when I take a big shit on it. I apologize. I love
please.
But I'll take a page from Chris. Right, Chris is talking about the last 5 years. So since we have an international call, let's talk about internationally, we as humans, when it comes to human rights. How have we been doing in the last 5 years? Do we see progress?
Yeah, in a lot of places, no. I mean, in some places, yes, but a lot of places, I think there are pretty glaring demonstrations of us failing.
How about the last 10 years?
Again, I think there's some problems, but there are also a lot of victories we could tout. So I don't have them.
The existence of victories, it worries me when we point at the victories because it feels like they are so few and far between that we need to remember them. And it is not because they are the norm. We are not forgetting our victories because we're having so many of them. We're remembering them because there are so few.
I maybe push back a little on that, but honestly, I think the sentiment is fair. And again, I would just say that is why we need people in this mindset, right? Because without those people, we will not continue to fight. We will become complacent, right? But I don't want to be completely doomerist about everything and say like, no, actually, we do live in a world where, for instance, just one example alone, more people in this world now do have the freedom to live their lives. More people have that than ever before.
Do they have the same freedom you're talking about 15 years ago? Or has there been progress?
I think there has been progress in that. I do think there has still been progress in that. Again, there are glaring examples of the opposite. But think of the nation of Iran. I think that is a hugely important country for people to be paying attention. The Iranian people right now are on the front lines of so many causes for human rights, and we need to champion them more. They are actively fighting a repressive, disgusting regime. Right. They are standing up for women. Their chant has been woman, life, freedom. I mean, God, that's beautiful. Go look at Kenya. Go look at the amazing progress that has happened in some communities in Nigeria. I mean, there are fantastic examples, but again, I don't want that to make us complacent. I don't want somebody to hear what I'm saying and say, oh, cool, we stop. I want to hear people from your side that are saying, SR, this fucking isn't enough. Like, we need to keep going.
Yeah, I guess the point that I'm making, Chris, I do want to make sure that, like, I love talking to you. And also, it is very expensive to keep you on the line. So I don't. Sorry. No, I it's worth paying for. I just want to make sure that while we have you on the line, we're talking to you. I think we're going to pick this up and continue moving and talking about it, though, because we're talking about this in broad strokes. But I want to give you the chance to chime in before we continue. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Nothing really. It's just to thank you to both of you for having me on the line. It's been amazing chatting to you both again.
It's great talking to you too. Take care.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Cheerio.
So I do want to continue this conversation. And I know that some people are getting ready because it's getting close to the top of the hour. And so before anybody goes anywhere, if you are watching live, hop in the comments and say happy birthday to John Klein. John turned 58 today and is a volunteer for the show. John, happy birthday. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
I hope you have a wonderful day today. Okay. So, yeah, me bitching is not, it is in the hopes that I'm going to, if anything, fucking shame people into doing it. Like, I think that the majority of the progress we rest our heels on was made by people that aren't us. And I think that if we want to continue to see progress, we can't expect it to be inherited. And I feel like the only progress we're talking about is stuff that we have inherited, not stuff that we have gotten ourselves. The last bit of progress here in the United States that I can think of is gay marriage. And that is wonderful, and I don't want to discount that. And that also does not eliminate the rising tide of fascist bullshit and rapid, it can take 10 years to see a good thing put in place and 10 minutes to see it taken down. We've learned that in the last 6 months, and so maybe I'm being too broad when I say where's the progress. We as humans have absolutely progressed. We in the United States have absolutely progressed. We as millennials, as if you're on either side of us, right? If you're Gen X, if you're Gen Z, what the fuck have you done? Because it does definitely feel like the vast majority of the things that we rely on when we talk about, oh, hey, things are better, are things that we inherited, not things that we fought for. And we're seeing it rolled back. So what the fuck are you doing to protect it? I think when I say where's the progress, it's because I'm genuinely thinking about in my lifetime, I'm seeing less and less. It's not getting better. I think when I was a kid and I saw a diverse cast in Captain Planet, that was more progressive than what is happening now, which means it has only gotten worse, not better in my life. And so it's hard in my current view of things to go, oh, yes, we are progressing. We may have progressed. And so that I will absolutely grant. We have progressed. And there is no guarantee that we won't go back because we're already going back. And if you think that we're not if you think that we're progressing right now, call in. It's the end of the episode. Call in next week. Convince my doomer ass that it's not happening. But if you in any way are upset by that fact, do something about it. Elliot, the getting involved locally with your community, I think, is the most important piece. The fact that you get more involved locally in doing things and actually going to protest and lifting up voices and finding causes that are helping people in their communities where they are, not waiting for a government, to come in and pass a 10-year bit of legislation to help them out. Not enough. Like, you're actually seeing that happening, and I absolutely love that. So I want to give you the chance to let's shout out a couple things people can check out this week.
Yeah. Well, and just to kind of just springboard off of what you were saying there, this might not be super popular, and everybody might not really like what I'm about to say here, but I'm just gonna take an extra step down, line of thought that you were just having there, which is, if you look back at the fights that happened and the sacrifices that were made, we're going to have to do those again. Mm-hmm. They weren't fucking easy. Nope. We lost people. We lost a lot of things that there will be no justice for millions and millions of people throughout history. The only justice that we could give them posthumously is to make sure that we enshrine things that prevent those atrocities from happening again. And again, I know this might not be popular because there's a lot of people right now that have been giving quite a lot. And there's a lot of people that really don't have much more to give. And here's what I'm saying. We're going to have to give it.
Yeah.
As hard as that is, it's going to have to hit home. It's going to have to come to our doorstep, and we are going to have to make some fucking sacrifices. Yeah. And that is horrible. But if we don't do it, we will never progress.
And also, you guys, find your niche. Find the thing that you can do. If you can't afford to donate, that doesn't mean that you're not able to help.
Yes.
Even my doomer ass is getting out there and finding local groups to volunteer with. Yes. And what skill set do I have? I can help people with podcasts and YouTube channels. So I'm actively trying to raise up some voices in my area and help get that out there, because that's what I'm good at. Not everybody is Theseus. Some people need to be Homer.
That's exactly right.
And that is okay. Telling the story is also important, but just making sure that you are not standing on the sidelines, whatever it is, whatever you have to offer. Let's bring it out. Yeah. Where's the progress? Hopefully it's tomorrow, because I'm not seeing it today.
Yeah, I think we can do it though. I really do. I think there is an opportunity here if we take it. And that was one of the things I said when I was giving my speech to close out the ARC protest. I said, I know we're tired. I know we're struggling. I know things are shit right now. But if we take this opportunity, we can make sure that it doesn't happen again. If we take this opportunity, we can, in fact, move the needle in the direction that it seemingly has moved in the past, but for some reason has stopped or turned back. We absolutely can make a difference.
Yeah.
If we take the opportunity to do so. So I know a lot of people have already given a lot, but there are a lot of ways that you can get involved. Like Eric was saying.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, like you were saying that, if you can't donate $5 a month to a cause, if you can't send that check to the Americans United, if you can't subscribe, to Skeptic Generation and send money to keep these conversations going, if you can't participate at the ARC protest, that's okay. There are 1,000 different things you can do. You can go get involved in your local community in groups that are happening all over this country right here, right now, and they need your support. I guarantee you, if you are in the United States and you are listening to this, there is a food bank close to you that needs your support. I guarantee you, there is a shelter for unhoused people that wants your participation. I guarantee it. So there are so many different things that you can do, you know. And again, there's already been some really cool things that have happened, and just coming up right around the corner. If you are in the Middle Tennessee area, you have got to get one of the few remaining tickets for the Nashville Nuns Convention. This is going to be an absolutely blowout weekend, man. We have already, and I'm telling you this for the Middle Tennessee people, because here's why. We have already sold out every single hotel room at Montgomery Bell State Park, baby. Every single one of these rooms is going to be filled up with atheists and heathens and sinners and secular people, man. I mean, it is going to be an amazing, and there are still tickets. You can still get them, but there's not that many. There's literally like just a couple dozen left. So if you're close by, it'll just be a day trip for you. Drive out, you can head back home, all that stuff. But if you can't get out, you know, down south here, and maybe you're a bit more a fan of some you know, more moderate, cooler climates. Did you know right at the beginning of August, up in Ontario, Canada, they're going to be having BajaCon again. BajaCon is coming back. You can go there. You can hang out with all kinds of incredible people. I mean, Seth Andrews will be there. Drew McCoy's going to be there. Gutsick Gibbon. Erica's going to be there. John Loftus, Forrest Falkai. I mean, it is going to be awesome. So those two opportunities right there, you know, are phenomenal ways for you to get involved and get connected. You show the fuck up there. You shake one person's hand. You say, what do you do? How can I help? You know, super easy, you know, and we forget this. We forget this so much. The power of just telling somebody, the power of just shooting off a message to a buddy or a coworker or a neighbor and just saying, did you hear about this? Are you aware that this is happening? Hey, are you going to this? I might go to this. Yeah. Can you believe that they're doing this? You know, that is so incredibly crucial, and we need more of it.
It is. And what a great way to give an example of a cost-effective way to help. Share that out. Speaking of, share this video. If you like it and you have not subscribed, if you like the channel, have not subscribed, take the time to subscribe. If you have not shared this video, please do. That'll get it out there. And like Elliot said, if you can support, it goes directly, literally directly into just making sure this show happens. I at one point thought that I'd be able to make a living off of this. No, this is just a passion project. It pretty much just pays for itself. But it does need that support. So if you would like to, please consider going to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. Just another way to help. Elliot, I love you, man. I'm so glad you're here.
Always love you.
Are you going to be doing after show?
No, I'm heading off to eat some beans.
So that was the part that was true. That was the part that was true.
Yeah, it is true. I have a pot of beans there.
Totally understood. Well, then I will be heading over to the after show in a bit. I will talk to you for a minute before, but hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining. I do want to put one last thing out there, and I will remind people. And that is that this is not for you, Elliot, but just for everybody else. Sunday, August 3rd. No, sorry, Sunday, August 10th. Mm-hmm. Oh, that is you.
That is me.
That is you.
Yeah.
Elliot, we're going to need to move our thing.
That's okay. We'll talk. No worries.
Well, I should, because our volunteers and everyone else as well. My grandfather passed a few weeks ago. And his funeral is that weekend. I am going to be flying out of state. I won't be able to do the show. Yeah. He was ready. We weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sucks, man.
So I will not be doing SKEPGEN the second week of August. Of course. So let's figure out when we're next going to have you on.
Absolutely.
But love you all. Happy birthday, John. Thank you all for joining us. Until next time, I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Secularity.
This is Skeptic Generation.
We're glad we had this talk.
Hold on, did you think this was over? No, it can't be over. I didn't read super chats. Let's try this really quick. I want to make sure we always read super chats. It's important. Hold on a second. Elliot, your beans have to wait.
Hi.
Sean Isherwood sent 10 pounds and says, we can axiomatize the syntax of Intuit. These are not words that work together. I don't believe you, Sean. You've had me going so far, but I don't think that's going to work. And then the second, the smallest elementary topos in the category of finite ordinals under functions, which is skeletal in the category of finite sets under functions. I got nothing. Aladine sent 20. I think those are kroner, and says Noah d'Arc from when we were talking about the Ark protest. John Klein sent $10. Thank you, John. On your birthday, you donated a super chat. Sent $10. Said happy belated birthday, Eric. Happy current birthday, John. My unfinished journey sent 222. Says hail Eric SR and hail change for the better. Empathy and respect sent $5. Says thought y'all don't like Jesus. So why does he look like the man himself? You do look pretty Jesus-y. It's a good look on you. It's a good look. And then empathy and respect sent 5 more and says, and why does the host look like a poor man's Leonard Hofstadter from Big Bang Theory? I don't know that reference. Do I?
The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah,
like the main guy.
Do I look like Leonard?
I mean, I guess I can see it sort of, but nah, not too bad. Not too much. I don't know.
Anyway,
I don't know. I'll take the discount store Jesus. I like that. That's
all right. We already played the outro, so I'm probably just going to end it right here. See y'all next week, everybody.